Dorney Park is an amusement park located in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and is owned by the Cedar Fair chain. It's full of different rides and attractions, but is looked down upon in the community for many different reasons. What do I think of this amusement park? This is my full review of Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So this is how the video will work. I will run through each section of the park, then talk about categories, and finally give my thoughts on the park. Let's jump straight into the park sections. Unfortunately, Dorney isn't divided into sections, so I'll just walk through the park and explain each area. Let's start with the main midway. Unlike most parks, Dorney's main midway is on the far right side of the park instead of the middle. The main midway is where you'll find most of your shops and restaurants. The entrance to the park is a bit dated, but it has a bit of charm to it. I like the old style entrance, but it would be nice with a new modern entrance. Talon, the park's best coaster, looms over the front gate, which ruins the classic vibe of the entrance, which is why I say they should get a Carowinds style front gate. As soon as guests walk in, they are greeted with a nice looking carousel. This entrance reminds me a lot of Cedar Point's entrance, with the carousel there as well. The midway has some shops littered around and a few rides. You'll find the Troika ride here, as well as the chair swing, which looks great around the water. This is one of the prettiest parks I've been to. Each section has tons of flowers, and you can tell the park really cares about the atmosphere. The midway includes the little games like ring toss or the ladder climb. And finally on the midway is Talon, which is one of the best looking coasters I've ever seen. It looks enormous above the midway, and it's a blast to ride. Let's move on to the next section. This section is what I'm calling Hydra Plaza. This section consists of 2 coasters and a few flat rides. Hydra Plaza, of course, features the roller coaster Hydra. While it's not too themed, I like the presentation of the ride. The sign is very detailed, and the ride looks beautiful over the path. The placement of Hydra is incredible because it's visible from everywhere. I especially love the section where you can look straight into the center of the JoJo roll. While Hydra isn't the best, it's a good coaster. Backing up a bit is the park's family coaster called Wild Mouse. It's a fun family coaster, but nothing too crazy. They also have a water ride in this section that looks to cause a big splash if it was running. Meteor usually operates here as well, but due to the virus, it wasn't operating. Hydra is when I noticed the park's biggest flaw, which is operations. They weren't terribly slow, 2.5 minutes tops, but for a Cedar Fair park, that isn't normal. I don't know if it was just when I visited, but the operations felt really slow. After passing a few more flat rides, we move on to what I'm calling Thunderhawk Midway. Thunderhawk Midway consists of a lot of rides. Most notably, it holds Steel Force, the biggest coaster in the park. While Steel Force is fun, it's not my favorite hyper. Its airtime is alright, but it is a very long ride. Also here is, of course, the beautiful Thunderhawk. I love how Thunderhawk is set up. The midway has flowers on all sides and goes straight down the center of Thunderhawk. Thunderhawk dives over and around the path, which makes it a very easy to snap a photo. Thunderhawk is also a great wooden coaster. It provides some great airtime and a lot of lateral G's. Thunderhawk Midway also has the main river in the park, which houses some ducks. It's not a big thing, but it's always nice to see some wildlife at amusement parks. To conclude Thunderhawk Midway, we have some big flat rides. The first is Demon Drop, one of the only first-generation Intamin drop rides, this one being relocated from Cedar Point. The other flat is Dominator, which is an SNS drop tower, which looks stunning towering over the area. Our second to last section is Possessed Midway. This is the entire southern area of the park. This section is probably my least favorite section. While it has a lot of rides, including the Intamin Impulse Possessed, it just doesn't look as good as other sections. There aren't a lot of flowers in this section, it's mainly just grass and trees. But the rides are pretty great. You have a big roller coaster and some flats, including the Enterprise ride. The final section is Planet Snoopy. Not much to say here besides it's a nice kiddie section. It houses Woodstock Express and a few other flats, but it's not the best kiddie section. Let's move into the categories. These categories will show the park's strong points and its weak points. Let's jump into Category 1, which is Roller Coaster Collection. Dorney will be getting a 7 out of 10. Dorney Park's coaster collection is alright at best. What I love is that Dorney has everything you need. It has an intense coaster, a family coaster, a classic Woody, an airtime machine, and a launch coaster. Now unfortunately, all of these coasters could be a bit better. Steel Force is great, but it needs a bit more speed and better airtime. Possessed is great, but it's very short. Talon is wonderful, but it's not as intense or whippy as Raptor or Afterburn. See what I mean? Dorney has a good collection, but it's nothing spectacular. Category 2 is Flat Ride Collection, and Dorney will be getting a 7 out of 10. Dorney has a great flat ride collection. In fact, it's one of the better ones in the chain. It has the smaller family flats, but also has some bigger ones. The park has a drop tower, which is always nice to have. It has a looping machine with Meteor, and while it is closed, I've seen the one at Kennywood, and it's always nice to have. Dorney has a spinning thrill ride with Enterprise, and also has some spinny family rides like Tilt-A-Whirl. Revolution provides a spinny and an airtime-filled thrill, and the water rides also provide a great thrill on a hot day. Our next category is Overall Atmosphere, and Dorney will get an 8 out of 10. I love the vibe this park gives off. It feels like a typical Cedar Fair park, which is already pretty great, but it also has some wonderful scenery. You can tell the staff really cares about how the park looks and how the rides are run. Every staff member is excited to be there and tells jokes in the station like they do at the bigger parks. Each section has wildlife and a pleasant vibe that only a few parks can claim they have. Next category is Food, and the park will receive a 6 out of 10. The food here isn't anything special. It's typical amusement park food, but the operations were relatively quick in the restaurants. I only ate 2 things here. I got a snow cone snack on the main midway, which took no time at all to get, and it was a superb snack. I also got typical chicken and fries, which was also pretty good for Cedar Fair standards. Dorney's food is above average. The last category is Operations. Dorney Park will receive a 5 out of 10. This is Dorney's weak spot. Some rides had great operations, some rides had terrible operations, so I have to average out to 5 points. Rides like Steel Force moved pretty quickly through the lines. I went on a pretty dead day, the main crowd being from a nearby school. The lines shouldn't have been as long as they were. We waited about 45 minutes for Hydra, and the line wasn't even that long. It was the operations that were bad. It took about 2.5 minutes to dispatch 1 train. Other rides, like Steel Force and Talon, were very short waits. The crew was moving efficiently and making sure everyone was secure on the coasters. Dorney's operations could use a little work, so Dorney's final score is 33 out of 50, a very average score. So what are my thoughts on Dorney Park? Overall, the park is great, but it needs a bit of work. Let me explain a little more. I really liked my time at Dorney Park. I like how the park is set up and run. The park runs a clean and exciting vibe, and the park is one of the prettier parks I've been to. It's full of plants, water, and wildlife, and I really like that. The coaster collection isn't spectacular, but it has everything you need. Overall, the coaster collection is good, but it needs some expanding. The park also has many pluses, including the food and especially the flat ride collection. The flat ride collection is fabulous. It has many different types of rides like Enterprise and Demon Drop. Unfortunately, the park loses points in my opinion with the slow operations. The operations overall need a lot of work, as some of them can be slow, but some of them can also be fast. So in my opinion, Dorney is great, but it needs a little more expanding with operations and coaster collections. Even with these flaws, Dorney is a great park, and I definitely recommend visiting. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing and comment below what you think of Dorney Park. Have a great rest of your day.